Okay, so we are going to talk about the Four Discourses. You're welcome to interrupt me and ask questions when you feel like that. Okay, so let's begin with the discourse that has been the mostly written on by many philosophers. Namely, it is the discourse of the master and the relationship between the master and the slave. Okay. So, and we are going to see that from this discourse, the other discourses can be deduced. Okay. So let's write that here. Discourse of the master. Okay, the discourse of the master is of course has a dialectic between the master and the slave. It has been formalized by Hegel, of course, and we are going to find the side of the master and the side of the slave. Okay. The master, by his position, has in a way renounced at his subjective position. What he brings forward as an agent is his dominant position. So the agent, what makes the master act, it is his dominant position, which can be written here, S1, which is going to be the agent with which he is going to force his mastership. And the renouncement of his position as a subject makes that the subject is here and is not here at the same time. But it is actually is acting as a master, putting forward that his subjectivity owns a truth. The agent being the dominant as a separation from the subject, but the agent acts in the name of his position as a subject. We are totally aware of this. It's because my name is President of France, Sarkozy. I can act and I can say, as he has officially said in front of the TVs, he said to some guys who were not okay with him, Beat it, you dirty cunt. Very nice.
Presidential.
Yeah, presidential. He said that, really? And that's why Sarkozy is loved by the mob, the mafia, because he's a man. He is a good fellow. And but this position does not accept the opposite, because in a demonstration a few months later, a guy at a panel was written on it, "Beat it, you dirty cunt." And he was sued by Sarkozy, of course. What do you think? What do you think? Mm-hmm. Do not mix the master and the slave. Mm-hmm. But there, you can come to have a little idea in this dialectic, in this little story. Who had the jouissance? Was it Sarkozy or was it the guy with the panel? Easy to decide. And this is fundamental in the discourse of the master. The master is dominant in the name of his subjectivity, but he doesn't have the jouissance. The jouissance belongs to the slave. And we can say it in the way that this unary signifier, this dominant signifier, represents the subject in the position of truth. For whom? For the slave, for the other. And therefore, who is going to have the knowledge? It is the slave. Who has the knowledge on this? It is the slave in S2. S2 being the knowledge. And now we can question what is the result of this operation. As it's obvious for everyone here, the jouissance is on the side of the slave. We can be pretty sure that even if this guy had a trial, he increased his jouissance by ranking that and bring it. Okay? Even if he's got to go to jail or whatever, because he offensed the president of France. What do you think? So the result of this operation is the A, which is, as we name it in French, and which is I write it in French, plus de jouir. Increase in jouissance. More jouissance. Okay? This equation is a simple way to represent the dialectic of Hegel between the master and the slave. And this here is the product, the byproduct or the product of the operation. By imposing this discourse, the slave gains plus de jouir.
And in your example, the more ballistic Sarkozy goes, the more jouissance our sign holder derives.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this is what we have in all the persons who are making fun of political masters, the little one, the big ones, and for instance, in I mentioned this example a few times. The master, of course, has some kind of awareness of the jouissance of the slave. And if you take again this book, 1984, the people are not executed unless they drop their jouissance. It's only when they are able. They decide that they're gonna give the guy is gonna give his wife or his beloved friend instead of him. So he has renounced to his humanity. Then he can be shot in the head, and he's staying in a special cafe where he's waiting for the bullet to come. But beforehand, as long as he has not made this renouncement, they are going to torture him. Yep.
Because the master, to be in that position, has to renounce their humanity.
What'd you say?
The master, to be in the place of the master, one has to renounce humanity. So those that are going to renounce humanity would be more likely to take a position of the master. So it would make sense that they would be executed if they're unhooked.
It's in the book. These persons are not the masters. They are.
Yeah.
No.
They unhook from the position of the slave, and they're not going to.
No. They cease to be human.
Yes.
Is there not a master is a human being?
But I thought the master renounces their to go over to the master's position. There's a renouncement of humanity. That's what I thought.
No, it's no. They are very pretty human, and they have the right to vote. This is a sign in these democratic countries. No, of course not. The master is a human being. Is human, although these persons in 1984 they cease to be human at the end. It's the dialectic of the master and the slave is a very human dialectic. What we are saying here is that the jouissance is not on this side; it's on this side. Mm-hmm. Many people can spend their lives without jouissance.
Is this a one-way process? I mean, is it always the master who's operating the slave and so increasing his jouissance, or is it as I increase my enjoyment, I also reflexively reinforce the master? Because when I think of Hegel, right? I mean, he says, the slave labors and the operations of the slave's labor supports the life of the master, and it becomes clear that the master is ultimately impotent because he requires the slave. So it's so it's kind of a two-way operation, right? Like the arrow goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. course, if there were no slaves, there won't be any master.
Yeah.
It's because this.
But there's still no jouissance on the side of the master.
What'd you say?
There's still no jouissance on the side of the master, even if you look at it from that other perspective.
Right, yeah.
So that the actual flux de jouir always remains on the side of that.
Because there is something that on this side, which is a denial of castration, and denial of castration is not compatible with jouissance, with what we call jouissance. Because of course, I can give you an example I give very often. It's because this term is very bizarre, and it's in French, because it seems that you don't have such a term in English. And a guy who has been arrested by the Nazi and who is going to be executed the very next morning. He writes a letter or a poem. This letter is his jouissance. Of course, it's not pleasure, because jouissance can seem to first look very similar to pleasure, but it's absolutely not. Well, it is a different realm than the realm of pleasure. Because in French, jouissance is orgasm as well, or it is as well an interesting term. I don't know how you say that in English. It's when you own a land, or your parents let you a land. Then we say that we have the person has the jouissance of the land. The possibility to use it and grow things, grow vegetables in it and whatever. It's called jouissance as well. It's a juridical term as well in French. But the first most usual meaning is to talk about orgasm. And so it is usually related to pleasure. And there, through Lacan, and Freud, we are focusing on something that is can be very, very different from pleasure. And the example of the guy who is going to be executed is, we're pretty sure he has no pleasure.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it seems like there's a point at which the jouissance annihilates the slave, though, because. So I'm thinking of like the Santa Cruz, right? The kids sitting on the sidewalk, and the police come in and they spray them, right? And it's like the impotence of the police, right? You know, that our authority no longer holds. We have to act to subdue you. And I mean, there's a point at which the impotence of the father seems to make the father not really the father, or of this authority is no longer the authority. And so the discourse always collapses. Is that right, or is it? I don't know.
I don't know if that answers to what you're saying. I can give. When I was beginning to work in a psychiatric hospital, it was for children or teenagers, and there was a young guy, and we gave him a nickname. We called him the Prince. He was very handsome, guy maybe 12 years old, and he was in the hospital for administrative reason. You know, he couldn't go out. You know, it was a decision of justice to keep him here, and this guy. Once in a while, maybe every 2 or 3 months, he decided he would leave. So it was a huge hospital. It was quite easy to escape. And he would escape, and at the end of the hospital there was a train. So he would take a train, and he would go up to 700 kilometers, 800, whatever, anywhere in France. And he would roam like this for a few days. And when he was fed up of that, he would go to the police or gendarmerie and say, "Hey, I am my name and I escaped from a hospital." And so they would take him and bring him back. And then 2 or 3 months later, he would do that again. Okay, the administration, the jurisdiction was in the position of the master. They decided this guy is forbidden to live. But who had the jouissance? It was this guy. He was in a position of slave. He couldn't. But he was. What could you do? You couldn't say, "Hey, we're going to put you in a psychiatric hospital." He was already in. What could we do?
Imprison him in a prison, but they couldn't.
No, it's a teenager, 12 years old. It would be a weight. It would be a weight in any kind of prison. He was not violent.
No,
he was just no, not at all. He was. That's why we called him the prince. He was a nice guy. Probably psychotic. I can't remember, but nice guy, not violent. It was very funny. I remember suddenly he would come in the room where the ward was. He say, "Oh, you are so beautiful." He would leave. You see, who had the jouissance? You see, it's that's. Okay, so let's summarize. The agent in the position of the dominant, of the unary signifier, represents the subject which is in the position of truth. For whom? It is for the other who is then in a position of knowledge, and this produces increase in jouissance, plus de jouir. Okay? This is the equation of the master, of the discourse of the master.
Jacques, can you explain the barred subject here?
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, it's an important question. And I want to tell you something. I want to tell you S1. And have a slip in the tongue. And instead of saying S1, I say S2. And then I say, oh, oops, excuse me, I meant S1. Okay? What is very important to notice here is that what's important there is how the time goes, and we have to split the time in elements, single elements. At this time here, let's call it T0. I had the intention to say S1, but what comes out my mouth is S2. At this very moment, T is 0, of course, I'm not aware that I say S2 instead of S1, otherwise I would have said S1. Okay? But what occurs is, fraction of a second after, I notice that, so the time later, that we're going to put here T1, I noticed that I said S2. And it jumps into my mind, into my ears. It's obvious I said S2 instead of S1. And I say, oh, I meant S1. So there is a process here that made jump from what was totally unconscious, the S2, to something which is totally conscious. The S2 is where I can, where I say I said S2, and I meant S1. Okay, my subject position, which is actualized in the I, is aware of the fact I said S2 instead of S1. Okay, now the question is, what can take into account the fact that something that was totally unconscious becomes totally conscious? What is the what is the structure that can indicate or take account of this? It crossed and it was totally unconscious. It's bizarre. Nothing special happened. It's not a transformation in my mind. I just thought I said that and it comes to my mind. So again, and that's, I say that many times, but I say it again here. It's, then we have, as always in Lacanian topology, we have to find the simplest topological structure that is able to figure what we are dealing with. So if I put that question, there is a bar which is totally impossible to go through, and then it's there. It was not there, and it's there. Of course, the simplest way to describe that is to say that this bar has not the structure of the fraction bar that we have in mathematics, but it has the structure of a Möbius band. Okay? As you know, so then we have here along the band, we have the time, it goes like this, okay? We have here, if we consider we have the S1 here and the S2 on the other side, and if time goes on, then I'm going to meet the S2 directly in front of me. But it takes time. This is fundamental, the time. It is the time to understand that, to see and understand that I said S2 instead of S1. This time cannot be 0. It can be half a second, 1/10 of a second. It can be 1 hour. It can be 10 days, 1 year, or all my life. And this is how psychoanalysis works. In the way that you are making utterances, and during a session, you can realize that what was the S2 beneath this utterance, or maybe it's going to be more than one session, it can be more than 1 year, and so on and so forth. Okay? So this is how it goes. And so you see here, we can say that this bar, the simplest way to take into account this bar is to say that this bar has this structure, which is the simplest. Because here, the master Sarkozy can justify himself as a subject, say, hey, I said that to this guy because I'm the president, and it's important to keep order. And he said another very good one. Unfortunately, now Berlusconi has resigned, so now he's the first. Before he was the second after Berlusconi to say horrible things. Now he's the first. He said...
so many jokes lost with Berlusconi.
He was in a suburb, and someone said something from a story, and he said... we are going to wash all these buildings with the car share. That's very cool, huh? So he can. So you see, this is how the S bar can come up after a time. Well, it's normal. I said that this guy was yeah, I think it's just a guy who refused to shake his hand or something like that, you know. I don't know. I can't remember. But it's normal that I reacted that way. I am the subject. Okay? So this is very important. 2 points are very important. Is that what I always say about topology is that even if the topological figure seems complex, it is always, I or Lacan always try to choose the simplest way to describe the phenomenon. There, unless you find something easier, we can say that the Möbius strip is the easiest way to describe what happens when there is a slip on the tongue of the tongue. Okay? Okay. So each time you see a bar like this, think of it as a Möbius strip, and usually you will not be wrong. Here is the same. The guy being in this position of slave can realize that when he has put his panel, he could be proud of himself. He can, he can grab his plus de jouir, which can become conscious. Okay. So, now let's have let's try to make a permutation of the terms and see what happens. And I want to make the permutation like this. And we're gonna first write what happens, and then we are trying to talk about it. So if I do this, here is going to come the subject. Here is going to come the A. Here is going to come the S1, and there the S2. Okay? Just made a permutation. Okay, so how can we say that? We see there that it is the subject which is dominant. The subject is in possession of the agent. It is the subject who is acting, the agent. This subject acts in the name of what? In the name of the plus de jouir, which is going to be put in the position of truth. If I act that way, it's in the name of the truth, of the name of the plus de jouir, the increase in jouissance. That's why I am the agent. And for whom am I doing this? For whom am I acting? I'm acting in the name for the other, and I pretend that this other is the master signifier. And the result of this position is the knowledge. When I say it that way, doesn't it ring a bell?
Time to go to class.
What?
Time to go to class.
Why that?
Well, always in grade school they ring a bell when you're supposed to be in your class.
Oh, okay. But there it's going to be the bell of the hysteria, of the discourse of the hysteric. And if I say it that way, you are going to recognize the relationship between the hysteric and the alter ego. If me, as a subject, I am imposing this to you, it is in the name of the fact that this way, in there is the truth of the increment, the increase in jouissance. That's why I'm doing that. And but the counterpart in the other, and that is why many male are very interested in hysteric women, is that because they know that they are put in the position of being a master signifier. And why do they accept that? They do accept that because they know that by this process they're going to increase their knowledge. You see?
Why the hysteric accepts that?
No, the master.
The hysteric is okay. That's a good question. It's because here, as you see, the S as a bar, which is known and unknown by the subject, by the hysteric subject. Oh Jesus! I can't take that.
Divided subject.
It's not. It is known and unknown. Look, S bar, S1. Who has the bar? It is accepted and refused that the S. Oh Jesus Christ! I don't take that. It's my wife. This division of the S is accepted and refused by the hysteric. This hysteric is not psychotic. In a way, she has the knowledge that there is this division. But it's not accepted. And in a way, it is a way to indicate to the other that the other maybe has not this division. And this is how we know that in this relationship between hysteric and male or we know that the bar is always higher, never sufficient. She is never satisfied. And this is why this guy is interested in. He knows that it's hard to live with, but there is more knowledge to grab. The result, the product of this operation is more knowledge.
But in this equation, the more knowledge comes without jouissance? Because in the other equation, the knowledge comes with the jouissance.
I would say that it's who has the knowledge of the jouissance. I would say that it's the hysteric who knows.
But the master that is acquiring knowledge without jouissance.
The master?
Yeah, in the second equation. Is that what
There is no master here.
Oh.
There is no master.
Other.
It's
so the other is acquiring knowledge in this equation without jouissance. Potentially.
I would think there is with. What you say?
Depends on if it's a masochist.
Yeah. Okay.
I would be sure there is jouissance. Otherwise, the relationship would split.
Right.
Yeah. It's through this feeling that the byproduct or the product of the operation is more knowledge, and male guys have the feeling that they are doing the same as if they were in a psychoanalysis by living with very demanding hysteric women.
So the question I have is that the hysteric who is somewhat propelled by her jouissance.
Who is what?
Propelled, the hysteric, propelled by her jouissance, doesn't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
She can't speak of it.
She can't speak of it.
She's driven by it. She's acting out through it, but she can't say a thing about it.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. So if we want to make some kind of fast generalization, so let's say this is the discourse of the hysteria. and that usually, in terms of roles, these usually, but it's not always the case. There we have the feminine side, and here we have the male side, the female side and male side, which is, say, most of the time, but it's not always the case, of course. Roles can be reversed or whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so far? So if we reformulate the subject is the agent representing the truth of the increase of jouissance. For the other, who is in a position of the master signifier, and this produces more knowledge. It's so common to say that the hysteric is looking for a master, and she never finds it. She's always deceived.
Can you qualify what kind of knowledge? That's, I keep getting lost in this.
I think it's extremely variable. It's just is something I presume many males encounter is the feeling that she knows something about me, and by being hit in the mind by this woman, I grab something of myself. I'm grabbing more knowledge.
So this is like Hegel's recognition, kind of?
Oh, no. It's more subtle than ego. Well, I don't know. After all, why do I say that? Maybe it's imaginary. I don't know. You may be right. It's the feeling that through this acceptance, I know myself better. So, is it imaginary or not? This can remain as a question mark. I don't know. Yeah.
You know, another way I was thinking about it is that when we're talking about knowledge, we're talking about any knowledge that stands in for the truth. So then the hysteric is going to knock that out.
Say again?
Any knowledge that stands in for truth, the hysteric will knock that out.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact,
exactly.
one has an identification with knowledge that matches his ego pose, right? The hysteric will knock it out, and then there's another truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Suppose the male says, "Oh, I grabbed some knowledge." She would say,
Yeah, you did not. Right, you did not.
You're off.
That's very good.
This is just a question. Do you see any progression between the discourses? I mean, I've only seen two, but...
No. Well. I would say no. Well, you want to know the end of the film. You have to wait a bit.
But Jacques, could you just say just a little bit about the rotation?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's interesting.
what to say about rotation? It's a way to if we are doing something simply mathematical, we are just looking at the consequences. And to come back to what you said, we have to deal with look, if the S bar is below and then it is above the bar, it means that something has happened in terms of this Möbius band. Okay, then in a way it can be after, but it's just the consequences of a writing. You see here, I just turned, make a quarter of circle clockwise.
Yeah, it seems like, for instance, even exposure to hysterical discourses, like in film or in theater or something.
Say again?
It seems like exposure to hysterical discourses, like in film or in theater or music or something, might actually help expose or kind of push off balance the master-slave discourse or certain things like that. Or rotate those by creating new openings or something. I don't know. It's like time passing.
I would say that it's very common that hysteric women like to have very big balls, you know. Yeah. Yes. And I would say in this country is quite common. So it would be, I would say that it's something that goes from very easily from here to here, here to here. Executive woman. Can you measure the size of what they have in their pantyhose? Look. It's special.
Why does hysteric does not want to accept the knowledge?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. It has to be most of the time. It has to be through psychoanalysis that, and then again, you are close to the end of the film. It's very difficult to accept that she is divided, but he is divided too. You know, and this is a human condition. This is, and there is always a shift between the fact that, okay, I accept that I'm divided, but I will never accept that he is. Okay, it's so I'm gonna punch him all the time to make sure he's not divided.
Yeah, and then I think the other important thing here is that the hysteric refuses to be objectified. So if there's a knowledge that she would be an object of, then she will refuse to be objectified. And that goes back, just a little tangent, to an earlier space of the hysteric structure where something provocative early may have happened, where she was objectified sexually or something as an object. So this continues to repeat as it relates to knowledge.
Yep, exactly. It's but it's very interesting when someone hysteric going through psychoanalysis and realizes that the consequences are very, very positive. She knows that she has a hysteric tendency, but she deals with it. Okay, does not put it as a necessity to the other. Okay, I know that that's my structure, but I'm going to calm down. Okay, and this can be really felt when it's the case. You can really feel that.
Yeah. Is erotomania linked to this at all? Erotomania, is it linked to this at all?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, because this comes to what you were saying. It's then because the question of the objectivation, how to accept to be the object of the other. Object of desire of the other, and this comes to the question we're mentioning when we were not eating, waiting for eat for eating, waiting.
Yeah, not eating.
Yeah, we had a non-meal, a great non-meal. Yeah,
That was the non-brunch.
it's not every day.
Only in immersions.
Yeah.
We even predicted it before. We said we should have a non-brunch.
Yeah, we had a non-brunch.
No, so we had a pre-brunch.
And so I forgot what I was saying. Yes, because there is then the question that am I in the bed with my lover, or am I outside of the bed? Okay, am I and there is always a lack in cut. I don't know if I'm in the bed with my lover or if I'm outside. Therefore, as I don't know, when can I accept to be the object of desire of the other? You know, but if you know that you're in the bed, why not? This can be a sympathetic moment. Okay, but if you're outside, well, you are.
Disaster.
You cannot do anything with me. I'm sorry.
Well,
Okay.
Isn't desire through the guise of the other especially strong in the hysteric? Thinking about Dora now, for example, and.
Yes, of course. Because why? What you are mentioning here is the. Our weakness and the strengths of the neurosis, whether it is hysteria or whatever, any kind of neurosis, all the time the subject has, it is so dangerous that he is going to have a strength very hard to maintain the position. And otherwise, if it's not a problem for you, you can shift easier. And you're going to drop the case, and for the other, it's going to be something very important. And this is the case for any neurosis. Okay.